Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Central Bedfordshire series. As the name suggests, this is right in the centre of Bedfordshire. There's 79 to cover in this district, so let's have a walk around one of them. Welcome for the first time to Bedfordshire. We are in the district of Central Bedfordshire and it's raining. It wasn't supposed to rain at any point on this trip, but there's a fine drizzle in the air and it's that fine rain that soaks you through, according to Peter Kay. Right, we are starting this one outside the local shop, which as you can see is also a post office, and it's a Budgeons. We don't see many Budgeons, do we? There's a pub over there as well. We're right in the centre of this place and it's a big one. This is Meppershall. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Bedfordshire, folks. For the first one in the county, we're tackling Meppershall, which is a hilltop village not far away from the town of Shefford. It's surrounded by farmland. Both the village and its manor house are mentioned in the Domesday Book, where Meppershall was recorded as Malpertesselle or Maperteshale. Thankfully, its name is a little easier to say now. For nearly 300 years after the Domesday survey, the manor house belonged to the Mepshul family. The present house is early 17th century. For quite some time, Meppershall was partially in Hertfordshire thanks to there being a detached portion or exclave of that county within Bedfordshire. The small section was transferred to Bedfordshire following the Detached Parts Act in 1844. Before the invention of greenhouses, Meppershall was a very poor community with large families living in two-up, two-down type thatched cottages built of brick with stone floors. However, when greenhouses came along, so many were built in the village that it was known as Glass City, and it grew salad crops for local markets and shipped them further afield via the railways. And we're back in the east of England, so it's no surprise that Meppershall also earned its income from coprolite digging. We last mentioned that in Suffolk. It's a top-notch village, this one, and we certainly liked it. Let's go for a walk in the rain. We begin on the High Street, almost right in the middle of the village. Meppershall is a predominantly linear village and historically grew up around this one long road. The High Street is almost a mile from end to end. It's where the oldest houses are located, but there are some new build houses around here too, and we'll get to those later. Let's have a look at some of these older buildings first. Here's the 17th century Manor farmhouse, one of the village's listed buildings. This is mentioned in the Victoria County history of Bedfordshire as forming part of St Thomas's Chapel Manor. An ancient pigeon house or dovecote once stood in its grounds. As we continue down the High Street, we come to this small green space. Meppershall has a few of these dotted around, if you know where to look. The bench is called Archie's Seat, and it's right next to a bus stop. To get to Meppershall on public transport, you need the 79 from Luton or the 89 from Hitchin. Okay, so we are sort of halfway down the main street and we come across a bakery, Roger's Bakery. Now we've already eaten this morning, So we're not going to sample the delights of this, but you know, it's a local bakery and good to big up local business. I'm sure they do a roaring trade around here. Right next door there's Meppershall Church of England Primary School. Let's check that out next. Meppershall Church of England Academy is of course the current school, but the village has been fortunate enough to have had a school since 1698. It was founded by Sarah and Elizabeth Emery, the daughters of the village squire, Richard Emery. They're all commemorated with a street in the village called Emery Croft. Where the High Street meets its end, you can either turn left for Rectory Road or right for Campton Road, and it's the latter we're heading down next towards the church. Meppershall's church is dedicated to St Mary and originally dates from the 12th century. It was half rebuilt in 1875 and 76 by Sir Arthur Blomfield. The church wasn't open, so we were unable to go in and have a look around. However, from the churchyard we can get a really good look at the Manor House. Here's the War Memorial. This is known as the Meppershall Cross, and there are 24 names on this one, 18 from World War I and 6 from World War II. Check this out for an interesting property, just to the rear of the church. I wonder how old that is, Nicky.
I don't know, but it's got a nice pond in the garden.
It has got a nice pond over there. You might be able to see that if we just hop across and have a look. Not exactly a small pond, a rather large one in fact. So yeah, there's the church here in Meppershall. Now, the original plan was not to come to the church yet. The original plan was to take a footpath around the church, because over there somewhere there's a castle mound. Now, it's a bit wet and horrible and mucky this morning, so I've opted not to take the footpath. But it is somewhere over there, and you can walk round. There is a path that goes all the way around the church and takes you sort of through the churchyard again and back over there. But I've opted to cut that out because, quite frankly, I don't want to do that with the footwear I've got on at the moment. But there is a castle mound here too. So now let's go that way, over there, and head back towards civilization. There's no way I could leave the castle mound out of this video, so unusually, today you're going to get two special sections. Meppershall Castle was located to the southwest of the church. It was a motte and bailey castle, and the motte measures some 80 feet by 100. The castle had two baileys of irregular shape, surrounded by a bank and a ditch. Today, the remains of the motte and both baileys can clearly be seen. The whole area is known to the locals as the Hills, for pretty obvious reasons. The castle was built in the 12th century by William de Meppershall, a royal official who held the manor as tenant-in-chief of the crown. The motte may have been one of those besieged by King Stephen in 1138, although the charter which suggests that is unclear. It may be he was just using it as a military base for a siege of nearby Bedford. In the 17th century, the timber-framed manor house, which we've just seen, was built on part of the castle site. And isn't it impressive? This next section will take us back up the high street. To get there, we pass a street called Marywells, which is a reference to a spring known as the Marywell. Even some locals may be unaware that Meppershall has a small brook running through it, thanks to the Marywell. It rises in what used to be the village pond near the church, and then follows the approximate line of the high street before giving its name to Brookside and Brookmead. There were 42 wells in Meppershall. One of them, which was 100 feet deep no less, was located at a bakery. I assumed the one to which my source was referring is Roger's Bakery, which we saw earlier. As the rain continued to fall, we soldiered on around a corner and into Gregory Close. This is one of the streets in Meppershall which is named after its old field names. The same can be said for streets like Walnut Tree Way and Harriet's Field. Conygate and Banland Croft refer to Meppershall's medieval strip farming system. So I imagine there will be some people out there who've never seen me before, because this is the first one I've ever done in Bedfordshire. You'll learn quite quickly that I don't like walking down the same street twice. I hate linear villages. but Meppershall is kind of a half circle because I can come down here to make the rest of it like a little loop. So hopefully we won't see the same thing again for the rest of the episode. So let's carry on. We're heading sort of that kind of way along a footpath towards some allotments. This next part of the walk was supposed to be quite boring. It was just a case of following this footpath into a residential area. However, in the distance here, there's a water tower, which we were to encounter a bit later in the day. Technically, this is within Stondon's parish boundaries. It's a local landmark that can be seen for miles around. This is Meppershall Water Tower, which is one of 3. The others are located at Edworth and Pollexhill, which is near Flitwick. Made of concrete, these stand out as beacons on the high ground of central Bedfordshire and provide water to thousands of homes across the area. Back to the footpath, and here we have the village allotments. For those of you who are new to the channel, it's a running joke to find these. Well, here I found them. And at the end of the path, we're into one of the many housing estates around Meppershall. This is Brookmead, which we learned about earlier. So this northern end of Meppershall seems to be a place where new builds are definitely a thing. We've just seen some going up there. When we get to the end of this road, if you were to turn right, you would see vast swathes of new builds going up. If you look at the map, there's loads of them. So Meppershall is indeed a growing village. Now, we're not going to turn to the right because if we do, it's kind of pointless because it'll just be a load of building sites and new houses, and they're kind of boring. So we're turning left instead, and I'm heading towards the village hall. In this final section, we will see the village hall and a few other bits and bobs, and we'll end up at the Sugarloaf pub. Opposite Who Road is a small green, which is where the village sign is, which you saw at the top of this video. I'm not totally sure what this logo, dated 1951, is all about. However, I do know what this one is because it tells you. This is the arms of the Mepshul family, which is also used as the parish council's logo. Up Walnut Tree Way, we find the village hall, which is as new as the houses that surround it. Meppershall used to have a village institute before this existed. It had been built as a World War I war memorial, but it was destroyed by fire in 1960. Around the back of the village hall, there's another little play area. Lastly, the Sugarloaf pub. This is the only pub in the village, but there used to be another on Who Road called the Barley Mow, which closed in 1970. There used to be a primitive Methodist chapel over the road which dated from 1915, but it's been pulled down and replaced with housing. It was right next to the village shop. For the second special section today, we're focusing on two things. Firstly, Meppershall Airfield, which is to the northwest of the village. This is a private airfield with 2 runways, which is only licensed for aircraft operations related to maintenance and repair at its associated company, Brinkley Aircraft Services. Run by the Brinkley family, the company started in 1984 and the hangar at the airfield was built by Andrew Brinkley, the managing director. Secondly, Chapel Farm, which is to the east of the village. This is notable for having a chapel, hence the name, but it's a very interesting one. This is the chapel of St Thomas the Martyr, which was built in 1175. It was attached to a grange which belonged to a nearby priory, which we'll cover in a later episode. A poor labourer once committed suicide here. His body was interred at a crossroads on the road to Stondon, an area which is still known today as Giggler's Grave. And there you have it, we are back to the beginning outside the pub and the shop where we started about an hour and a half ago. So yeah, really good. Despite the weather, I've enjoyed this walk, quite frankly. Yeah, hopefully the next one here in Bedfordshire will be just as good. Hopefully this weather clears up a bit because I would like the sun to come out and show off Bedfordshire in all its glory. Don't know much about Bedfordshire, as you can probably tell, because I have been here a few times in my life before, but never to sort of stay and walk around. So hopefully I'll learn some things as I'm going along. For now, this has been the parish of Meppershall, and I've been Andy, otherwise known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.